Okay, I'm gonna try and go over some different ways of how you can change the skin colors on different types of textures. And well, there's two kind of different methods depending on what sort of texture that the creator gave you. So I'm gonna go over the one where you only have one flat texture, no layers first. And for those, color matching is not always, usually gonna end up not being perfect. Um, and then I'm gonna go over how to do it with the sort of textures where you have different layers, where color matching, especially when it comes to like undertones and stuff, and shading is gonna be a lot easier. So first off, I'm gonna be using Tori base as an example, along with Milkgores head. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that the skin tone is somehow a little bit of the same. Um, so first, what I want to do is I want to match them. And well, considering that a lot of face text and body text don't have different layers, I usually pick whichever will be easiest to change. So since this one has makeup, eyeshadow, eyelash, all that stuff, I will be trying to color match the body to the shade and color of this face. You can do this in pretty much most uh, painting softwares. I use Clip Studio, GIMP works just as well. Photoshop, all you need to be able to do is have like filters, um, brightness, contrast, hue, saturation, all that stuff, and be able to have different like multiply, all that stuff. So first, what I like to do is I pick a little piece from here with the colors on a new layer, and then I kind of just find a different areas on the body, light and dark, where I can kind of like compare with it. So if we look at the mid-tone here of the face and the mid-tone on the body, we can see the difference is that the face texture has a lot warmer tone, while this one has more like an orange tone. So what I'm going to do is I usually always make a backup layer of the base, because we like having backups. And then I want to use a filter. I like using correction layers, because then you can change your mind, but you can also, if your software does not have that option, just use a normal hue or saturation layer. So what I want to do now is kind of try and give it a warmer, uh, which I do kind of by playing around with the hue slider, um, till it's kind of a little bit better. Might need to play around with the saturation as well. Alright, so the light part now of the skin is very close to the light part of the face, which is what we want. It's not always possible to get the exact same undertone if the original creator did not have several layers. Like, yeah, well, it is possible if you've really sit around with it for a long time, but most of the time, you want to just try and get as close as possible. Especially like in this case, where you can see we're almost at the same, but since the body usually has more detailed textures, it can be a little bit hard to match. So, what if we try and take some shading for the nose? See how that. Yeah. I'd say this is close enough for me to feel like, for now at least, decently. Yeah, the highlights are pretty close. Alright. So, our first step is done. We, as well as you could for now, in a quick version at least, matched the colors and somehow, approximately, mixed the undertones as well. I also like to make a copy of the skin layer. Kind of like doesn't have all the things that doesn't need to be changed. Depending on the texture, I will make the blush part of the multiplayer. With this one, it's not gonna look too good in my experience, so I might have to play around with that later. Basically, use the cliplet below, use multiply, take something. It's gonna be a little bit, uh, well, it's gonna change depending on what you have under it, but basically just play it over, and in order to really get like something you like, I recommend using like these to play around, like saturation, brightness, well, luminosity, the hue. Well, the hue can be a little bit hit or miss, but say this one for the first one, and because I want my skin tone to match, I'm just gonna color pick, make sure to make it normal before you color pick so it's the correct one. And the same one here. Apply. And well, I guess could just to make it easy for yourself. Sorry, like this. There we go. Now we have our first. There you go. So the ears match. And I also like to test them. So let's try and do that. And maybe I should also import the correct body. then let's try to match. And as we can see, this is pretty close, pretty decent for a color match. So with this, I'd like to continue. Also, I haven't done this yet, but personally, for me, as soon as like you get to something that's well above pale, the white creates details on brows and eyelashes and stuff like that. Personally, I do not like that. So I usually end up just making a layer of like pitch black to make it look better in my opinion. So we have our first skin option. I'm gonna duplicate the skin layer just because that's easier. And same with this one. Just gonna make new multiply. And again, just to make it go quicker, gonna pick something here. It's gonna look good. It's a little bit trial and error. Finding something that looks good. This one I like. And like this. Oh, I forgot something important. This one I want to lock, transparency lock, just so I don't color everything else in. Alright, for faces, I have noticed a lot of time. I feel like it gets a little bit washed out with the details, especially like the highlights. For this, I just like to, well, usually easier with like airbrush and just give it like a little something. It's easier if you have a tablet, which I don't have right now. Just turn down opacity until it matches, and like this. And gonna export again. Same with this one. Export. And we're gonna test it. Oh. This. And we still got pretty nice badge. Which we like. So let's do another one. Now with this one, where we only have one layer, this is where it starts, like, so you go darker than this, starts being a little bit problematic with losing details. Usually what I do here is I go in, like I added the highlight, I'll go in and like airbrush some shading, make the nostrils darker so you can actually see them. Give the lips some airbrushing as well to make it how about more, add some highlights. Usually do that too. But let's still test how they look. Alright, let's try and see. And as we can see, these still match up pretty well between the head and the body. Same here. And here it does get a little bit different, but oh my god, these are not mixed up. But yeah, I feel like the solid view is pretty good to test it, and then, well, in material you kind of want to make sure that they actually have the same settings. There you go, a little bit better. And of course, how you make it in Unity is also very much like makes a difference. You see, as soon as you add rendering to it, you can actually see the shadows. They all end up looking a bit better. Alright, and for the second method, where you have a base with like a texture like this, with a lot of layers. For this one, I'm using Starlynns face, which I definitely would recommend when it comes to this. Like, I think they did a really, really good job by splitting all the different parts into different layers. It's really neatly organized, and definitely has been one of the best heads that I have had to recolor, and the one of those where I had like the closest color match. So this one is really neat since we have like a plain base color, we have a shading layer, even an inner ear shading, and stuff like that. So I'm going to be using Pandas. These are from Uni's skin pack, just to kind of show like the ones that Uni has different undertones. So I'm gonna, yeah, share for those. It works for everything, so don't worry about that. So we're going to first gonna take just like an area like here where we have like pretty much the same skin tone, very slight variation. Can really avoid that. Which we are just gonna put as the base texture of the face. We have the shading layer. Always remember to have the transparency locked. And personally, I like some contrast, so I'm gonna try a little bit of a darker one first. Might be just don't shade too dark for the shading. Let's see. This might be a bit better. Got the ears. These, which I'm actually gonna make just slightly darker. That, yeah. I might actually just make it like this. And then, so that's just the skin. Then we have the lips, and for this, there's different ways of doing it. You can either do a multiply and do a clip to layer below. Depending on what you want, this is going to give it a more nude look, which I usually prefer, so I can like do whatever makeup I like doing overt. Same with the nose, since it's split into different layers. You can kind of do what you want. Again, I kind of but I think for this one, just gonna highlight. I want to pick a color that fits a little bit better. Actually, that, or we can just turn the opacity down to fit just a little bit better. That, well, eyes we don't have mud. There you go for the eyeshadow. I'm probably just gonna do like this. Then just get a little correction layer. And make sure to clip it to just that one. And just like this. We have a pretty neat match, which I am, of course, gonna try. Alright, now it's time to test it. We got the skin, and then we got the face that we wanted to match it to. And as we can see, this color matches even better when you compare like shading, the undertones. Try to do the material preview. Nope. Go. Can do a little render as well to compare, and yeah, that's how you get it. There you go. I fixed the creases, and there you go. This is not meant to be a full in-depth tutorial. It's more meant as like a springboard to get started. And personally, I use hours on making all my skin textures that I use between the different heads and the different bodies fit each other, um, as well as I can do with the tools I have. So I hope this was helpful, and well, you can find me in my server if you have any questions.